Why, hello there. Welcome back to All Day the Geek Way. I'm Jet. Hope you're enjoying your day the Geek Way, of course. Now we're going to talk about some My Hero Academia manga spoilers. My Hero Academia currently being my favorite manga and anime series. Contemporarily speaking, if you can't tell, have All Might in the back saying Plus Ultra in the background. And you can't see it in my room now, but I have a lot of My Hero Academia paraphernalia. And I want to talk about manga spoilers. If you don't want any spoilers for the manga and your anime only, do not watch this video. Come back to it much later. Or if you don't care about spoilers, continue watching. And if you're all caught up with the manga, please join me in the conversation. I want to have this conversation. We're on chapter 320. In 319, we just saw the rest of Class 1A come back in to confront Deku and his current dark state of being. First being introduced actually with Bakugo in chapter 318 when he uses AP shot to get a bunch of people off from the fatigued Deku. Deku being super fatigued because he's taken the burden of trying to find All for One by himself. First he was with the Endeavor Agency with Endeavor, Hawks, Best Genius, the top three heroes, and All Might, but he eventually abandoned All Might to pursue this by himself. And Deku was fatigued to the point when he was being pursued by the assassins. He literally could not move. Got the rest of Class 1A trying to talk him out of it, and Deku told them to move, and they said, yep, this is how you are. You're very strong-willed, and you're very stubborn, so we'll have to force you back into UA. Start chapter 320. And this is where it still gets good. It's been good the entire time, but Horikoshi, his artwork has been top-notch recently. Not that it's never been top-notch, but with Deku's costume slowly getting a little bit more deteriorated, showing his manic side, his more obsessed side. Really, Horikoshi has put in so much detail into Deku, that way he can have kind of a symbolism of both the downfall of what it means to be a hero, especially after the whole war that happened and Endeavor was exposed. After all of that, not to mention the burden of Deku trying to take that responsibility on his own as he's obsessed with finding all for one. And with him being obsessed, it really has made him look like a villain with his old costume, which is ironic because his old costume, at the very first time that we saw the costume, and he was actually wearing it before he got into a fight with Bakugo that first time of Deku versus Kachan, he was made to, according to Horikoshi, look like All Might because he had what looked like the hair. He was supposed to have that permanent smile. Most fans thought he was trying to look like a rabbit, and then All Might's like, oh, it's obvious. You're trying to look like me. To which all of us fans were just like, yeah, totally. Trying to look like you, All Might, not like a rabbit. But that's Tamirko, so that doesn't matter. First panel starts with rain falling down, and you see Ida in the rain, basically saying, when your mind's set to something, it's hard to move you away from it. Bakugo doing his thing, insulting Deku, and also saying, like, we've learned that you've been able to acquire the quirks of the 4th to 6th users of One for All, and calling him a damn nerd, the usual. And Deku doesn't want to fight his classmates, which is what I love from Horikoshi. If he started the fight where Deku was actually fighting his classmates, I'd be questioning the mangaka, because that's not Deku's character. Even though he's going down this dark path, he's doing everything to protect everyone else. Whether or not he should be doing that, that's a different story. But he's trying to protect everyone else as the premise. Unfortunately, he's putting the burden on his own shoulders. So he doesn't want to fight his classmates, so what he decides to do is he uses the quirk of the 6th user. He uses Smokescreen, which Uraraka figures out. So we can also insinuate that the rest of the class knows about the previous quirks of the previous users of One for All. Uraraka says, like, oh, he's using the 6th user's quirk. He uses Smokescreen. Bakugo uses landmines to disperse the Smokescreen. And Deku still tries to run away. But you see Koda uses animals. And he basically says, like, come back, Nezu's okay with it. And he's just like, well, no, I don't want you here. So he uses Black Whip to grab him onto a building. And the person who intercepts Black Whip is Sero with his tape. And Sero, you see a lot of characters are about to go down memory lane with Deku in order to save him, which is pretty cool. I'm not surprising. It's classic shonen. Classic shonen trope, like, oh, remember this? That way we can relate with each other. And then they do. Well, anyway, the flashback is when Sero is trying to teach Deku to maintain his black whip. And it's a good memory for Sero. And then who comes in next is actually Jiro, and she uses her heartbeat wall to try and immobilize Deku. And she talks about how during the Culture Festival, he helped her organize her notes, and it actually motivated her when Deku says, like, I thought you were just bored to tears on that. And it turns out you actually thought really highly of my note-taking. But Deku's currently in denial at this moment in time, which is nothing surprising with this dark path of the arc. Deku's being very stubborn to the point of denial. He denies the most basic things that help him become a hero and that help distinguish him, especially to his classmates. Because right now, the two members that really can distinguish themselves are Bakugo and Deku. My boy, Midoriya. My boy. That's my boy. My favorite character. Well, up next comes Ojiro, who uses his tail to wrap Deku, and Ojiro says, like, hey, when you stood up for me and you were frustrated for me in your battle against Shinsto, that really stood out. And Deku, and with amazing artwork, if I knew how to edit better, I'd put the picture of the artwork on here, but the artwork is so amazing because you see the way that he's presented is almost to the point of maniacal, almost obsessed, almost manic. And he basically said, like, One for All wants to capture me. And he doesn't want anyone to get involved with that. And, like, Deku wants to take on this burden on his own when all of his classmates are basically saying, don't do this. Like, don't do this all on your own. We're here. We can take on this burden with you. And Tokoyami would eventually come in and use Dark Shadow to basically throw Deku into a building, which we'll find out contains Yayorozu with a sleeping device. But just before that, Sato, Sugar Rush, he catches Ojiro and Jiro and basically says, Deku, if you keep this up, I'm not giving you the food coloring to the candied apples that you make for Eri. And Deku's sitting there being like, well, she doesn't need those from me specifically. Dude, Eri cares about you, Deku. Not that I can really talk to a fictional character, but let's pretend that Deku's listening to me and he's not being stubborn. Dude, you risked your life along with Mirio to save this little girl against Overhaul. You beat the shit out of Overhaul. You made Eri smile, and then she got to taste something sweet for the first time, which was a candied apple that you went out of the way to make for her, to make her further happy. And you're like, oh no, she doesn't need it from me specifically. Dog, she looks up to you. She loves you. You are her hero. You and Mirio. Like, are you serious? Come on, man. Like, get it together. Well, anyway, again, Yayorozu is going to be in the building, and Deku's being hooked to a sleep machine, and Deku figures out what's going on. So he just moves his head forward, kind of like in a headbutt motion, and just breaks that part of the machine. And Kaminari comes in and just basically says, like, Deku, I know we don't have any hobbies in common, but you're my friends. I want to be able to relate to you. Come on, man. Like, get to your senses. And you're going to have Soji coming in, the Dupli Arms guy, and he's wrapping his arms around Deku, and there's something on his arms. I don't remember what it is. I should have wrote it down before. And it creates, like, a dark contained area for Tokoyami to come in and use Dark Shadow. Oh, by the way, Shoji, like, talks about the camp and being like, yeah, we don't need All Might here. Like, I'm good with my friends. And Shoji just like, if you meant that, come on, dude. Like, we're here for you too. And Tokoyami uses Ragnarok Womb to encase Deku, like, in an enveloped version of Dark Shadow. It's really cool, it's really powerful, and it brings back the memory of Tokoyami being like, Deku, wasn't it you at the cavalry battle during the sports festival that said the best offense with Dark Shadow is a good defense? Like, come on. Well, Deku's still being stubborn, and he's still trying to escape, and he manages... Well, first, before that, Kaminari basically says, like, dude, you smell, we gotta give you a bath. And I can see that. Deku's been at this for, like, days, if not weeks. It was a really funny little tidbit where everyone's like, Deku, relate to you, and Kaminari's like, take a bath. Like, you need to take a bath. You got to get bathed, man. You stink. Well, Deku still manages to escape. Now, keep in mind, Deku is exhausted. He is fatigued. Remember, before UA came in and the rest of his class, like Class 1A, he fell to the ground and he was almost susceptible to the assassin that was trying to take him out until he was saved. But he still manages to escape Ragnarok, which is one of Tokiyami's most powerful moves, and everyone's super surprised. He escapes and he starts going from the building, and then there's a couple of panels. Deku lost his mask, and the mask is like slowly falling down into the ground. And he's talking about how he doesn't want to be a burden on anyone and how he should be able to do this himself. And out of nowhere comes the heaven-piercing wall, the ice heaven-piercing wall, as done by Shoto Todoroki, my boy, my other boy, but I prefer this guy, Midoriya. That's my boy. And Midoriya's in there, and Shoto basically says, like, this is a burden worth sharing. You don't need to do this on your own. And of all the people that's coming from, it's one of the first people that Deku saved. It was Todoroki during the sports festival. And that means a lot coming from Todoroki, and Todoroki's going to do anything to be able to help Deku. And slowly after that, Tsuyu's coming in being like, hey, it's okay to shed tears and do all this stuff. You don't need to take this on by yourself. Like, you don't need to act tough for us. It's okay to smile. It's okay to shed tears. And it ends with Tsuyu on the wall trying to help Deku. So I'm very excited because we're going to see more character moments and relatable moments with Deku. Coming up is Tsuyu. And remember, with Tsuyu in particular, you have one when they rescued Bakugo from All for One, but more importantly, the USJ, when everyone was transported to certain areas of the USJ, and it was Tsuyu, Mineta, and Deku on that boat trying to help each other. So we're probably going to have something from there with Tsuyu. Maybe Mineta will come in, because at that moment in time is when Deku jumped off the boat and used one of his fingers. He used a smash to bring the water in, and Mineta's like, you're so cool being able to risk your life, and he just throws all his balls on his head into the water. We're probably going to get something from Ida, I hope, because Deku also saved Ida when Ida was on his path of revenge for when Stain immobilized and paralyzed his older brother. If there's anyone that Deku's going to fight, it's probably going to be Bakugo. And honestly, I think Bakugo, I mean, unless he just became super overpowered recently, with how Deku has been, could probably overpower Bakugo. But that's the only person, but even then, that's still a little bit out of character. I hope that doesn't happen. But I'm sure there's going to be some character moment between him and Bakugo. But more importantly, what I think might happen, I kind of hope happens, is the one person that'll bring him back is Uraraka, little Ochako, Uravity. Because she's actually saved him many times. The first time being when everyone's trying to get the entrance exam into UA. Deku sacrifices himself and punches the giant robot, and as he's flying and his bones are broken, Uraraka slaps him in the face and saves his life. And another time that she saves him is when Deku first uses Black Whip. And Shinso has to immobilize Deku by using his brainwashing. And as he's falling and all that stuff, and Deku's in his state, Uraraka slaps him in the face to make him fall slowly. So I think Deku might get another slap in the face from Uraraka. Kind of hope so. I mean, I don't like shipping characters, but Deku and Ochako, for sure. That one makes the most sense. And Horikoshi has also alluded that in this particular arc, or at least this act, I think it's the arc though, that Ochako and Hawks are probably going to be the two most important characters, at least in terms of development and stuff like that. I don't know exactly what Horikoshi meant. I have to reread the tweet, but I'm looking forward to more stuff with those two in particular, especially Ochako. I love her. She's a great character. And you can also tell, you can see the reason why Deku doesn't want to put these burdens on everyone. Because after the war that happened with All for One, we almost lost Aizawa, we almost lost Gran Torino, and Bakugo was fatally hurt. And at the time when we were reading this, we had no idea their fates. I mean, Bakugo is probably gonna obviously be alive. He's the most popular character in My Hero Academia. But Gran Torino, I thought he was as good as dead, to be honest with you. So I can see where Deku's coming from, but at the same time, if he's stubborn, his classmates are going to be just as stubborn to rescue him. and not have him take on that burden on his own. Because Deku's helped influence so many people, like they're gonna repay him back. It's a shonen. It's a shonen manga and anime. So I'm looking forward to chapter 321 and doing another review. This is a lot of fun. Not to mention, I'm just so stoked for My Hero Academia. It's one of my favorite things. So thank you for tuning in. I hope to see you next week or whenever the next manga chapter release happens so I can talk about that too. I hope you're all enjoying your day at the Geek Way. I'll see you next time.